Well, Syria is a very tragic case. You've had over 100,000 people who've lost their lives and many more who have been displaced, and tremendous number of refugees, potential destabilization for the countries in the region. And it is the latest example of what we have of the failure of prevention. And it underlines the fact that the international community has to do a better job in preventing these conflicts from happening in the first place. Because there are moral reasons for prevention. There's nothing higher morally than preventing the loss of human life. There are economic imperatives for prevention. It costs so much less to prevent a conflict than trying to rebuild. I mentioned, of course, my first mission, Macedonia, where we spent about 50 million annually for fairly successful mission, and you can just imagine the billions of dollars that we'll now have to spend ultimately to rebuild Syria. And then, of course, there are strategic reasons. You do a better job of prevention, you do not have to contend with all the strategic complications that one has with refugees, potential destabilization of regions. So it's a really tragic case. It underlines why we have to do a better job at prevention. Just a couple of weeks ago, at the centenary of the Peace Palace, the Hague Institute for Global Justice, which I now have the privilege of leading, launched something called the Hague Approach Principles. And the Hague Approach Principles, there are 6 principles which are focused on trying to establish sustainable peace in post-conflict situations. Those principles, I think, are directly relevant for Syria and for countries like Syria. We underline the importance of prevention, that conflict prevention matters, the importance of a rule of law culture, because one would have to rebuild the rule of law in Syria, and that's not just about institutions or courts, but really having the rule of law embraced and understood by the people at large. The importance of networks and the network response, bringing various stakeholders to the table and utilizing their skills in this process of rebuilding. The importance of strategic communication, the vital role of the private sector. And finally, the 6th principle of the Hague approach is the responsibility to learn, that outsiders, internationals have a responsibility to learn and to use the learning from post-conflict situations to inform their approach to peace building in the future.